Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the AT&T Countdown to Kickoff. We have made it to the playoffs, and we're here at the training ground as a result for our playoff preview show. I'm Mike Conti with Jason Longshore. This is an exciting weekend. Atlanta United going for their second MLS Cup, and the journey starts Sunday at Yankee Stadium against New York City. It's going to be a tough match. It always is when you play at Yankee Stadium, but the work that Atlanta United did just to get to this point, going into the playoffs now, as one of the two hottest teams in MLS, I think we're going to have a really exciting month based on the way that Atlanta United played to get here.
Yeah, Decision Day was a pretty wild ride when we went down to it, where you fall behind in Cincinnati. We're looking at all the permutations of what the matchups could look like. Then there was a point where we're looking at that game in Yankee Stadium, and Atlanta United could have hosted a playoff game if things had gone their way. That's what Decision Day is all about. But what Atlanta United's done in the second half of the season to put themselves into this position, they've been one of the best teams in Major League Soccer. It's exciting to watch this team under Gonzalo Pineda. They've shown in these last two games on the road that they can go and take care of business in difficult situations. We know how difficult a match with the New York Red Bulls is. That match took a lot out of Atlanta United, I thought, going into Cincinnati, and the first half kind of showed it. But then that resolve kicked in. You get 2 goals, you win that match, and now you get an opportunity to maybe get a little bit of revenge on New York City, where the last time these teams met at home, dropped points at the very end. This feels like a bit of a revenge game to me.
It does, and we're going to get into some big picture analysis a little bit later here on the AT&T Countdown to Kickoff, and I'm glad you mentioned that match in October, because I feel like every time that Atlanta United and New York City get together, they play really high-quality matches. This is one of the more, in my opinion, underrated rivalries in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, it's been that way from the days of Patrick Vieira and Tata Martino, and I think it's going to continue now. It feels like it's always close. It feels like it always comes down to certain moments in these matches, whether it's Eric Remedi in the playoffs in 2018 on the road getting that goal, or the free kick in October on the New York City side. The two teams that generally want to play. And I think the Yankee Stadium fear, which has been a big part of the conversation this week, I don't think it affects Atlanta United as much in this iteration of the team. You got a bunch of players who could dribble their way out of a phone booth. So you're going to be playing in a phone booth at Yankee Stadium. I think Araujo, Moreno, Barco, Joseph, that attack in tight spaces can really take advantage of playing there.
But Atlanta United has won there. They've won there by scoring golazos like Eric Remedi's in 2018.
Of course.
And we think it's going to be a really fun match on Sunday. We're really excited to bring it to you. And we're glad that we have an opportunity here on the AT&T Countdown to Kickoff to speak with Atlanta United Technical Director Carlos Bocanegra, not only about Sunday's playoff match, but also everything that went into Atlanta United getting to this point of the postseason. Well, Carlos, thanks first of all for joining us. Congratulations on the contract extension announced earlier this week. And I know you have to be very excited that you're going to be staying here for the long term.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been good. We've been in talks for a while about it, and wanted to find the right time to announce it. Try not to take anything away from the playoffs this weekend, so we chose an international break, but I'm thrilled. I love this club, been here since the beginning, and really looking forward to staying here. My family, we love it, this city. Everything about this club, supporters, the organization, so thrilled to be here long term.
It's been a wild year in 2021. I mean, we were talking about some of the things that we've all been through this year, and for you went into the Hall of Fame this year. You're going to stay in Atlanta for a long period of time now, and we've had kind of a roller coaster of a season. Just reflecting back on it now, getting ready for the postseason, what has 2021 been like for you?
Yeah, 2021, we've had some challenges, like you said, but this is sports. Like it's funny. Like so, you get your ups, your downs, and you have to roll through them. You can't get too high, you can't get too low. You hear the cliche, you've got to trust the process, right, and stick with the process. But I think that's never more true than in sports. And so while we had some challenges, we were able to overcome them. And I'll tell you what, it's the group that we have here and the people that work for this organization. I spoke about it in my press conference, but we have so many people dedicated to the cause here, willing to sacrifice for the club, and that team first attitude and club first attitude is great. So we were able to overcome those challenges, and yeah, we've kicked on and finished 3 points out of second place, which is crazy to think when where we were sort of middle of the year. So fantastic, proud of the boys, proud of the staff that's come, and like I said, just the organization. Everybody's been bought in and supportive, and we stuck to the task. So wild 21, but let's see how far we can keep this going.
Well, you're going into the postseason as the hottest team in the league, unbeaten in your last 6. You and Vancouver, the 2 teams that can say that going into the postseason. Since August 1st, Atlanta United has earned the 2nd most points in the league, second only to New England, who won the Supporters' Shield. So from an on-field standpoint, I know that Gonzalo has talked about wanting to be a team that nobody wants to see in the playoffs. Do you feel like Atlanta United is positioned as such going into Sunday?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we don't want to come in cocky, and we don't want to come in overconfident. I think, I read something the other day. I think we only had 3 losses in our last 18 games. So while I think, speaking to what Jason was talking about, we had some challenges, but we've had to be resilient, and the guys have had to adapt and change and move forward, and that's been something really interesting for me to see. We went away, we had a gritty away win to Toronto. We had to come back and claw in the last game of the season for Cincinnati. So they haven't all been super pretty, I guess. Or you look at that Red Bull game that was away. But the guys have been fighting, and the guys have dug in and really been committed to the cause. So I think that's something that I really like to see, and that's something that I think is going to hopefully help benefit us in the playoffs, because the transition fouls, especially in New York City, it's going to be a tight field. Transition fouls, you don't get an inch. It's the playoffs. Nobody wants to give you anything. So when the margins are this thin, we've done a pretty good job of being able to fight and claw and hang with teams. And then, look, if our players are playing well, we have the talent. And so first we have to make sure we're in the fight, and then I think our talent should see us through.
So you've seen Atlanta United at Yankee Stadium a number of times. In your career, you played on narrow pitches from time to time. How important is it for Atlanta United to kind of stay to what this club does and the way they play, wanting to create those 1v1s, wanting to get the talented players on the ball to win those duels? How difficult can that be on a pitch like Yankee Stadium?
Yes, so I mean, we pride ourselves with dominating the ball, trying to win that possession battle, isolate people 1v1, and that's the type of players we bring in, right? The guys that can isolate 1v1 and go make a difference. It's not easy to do up there. It's really not. And so as much as we'd love to play beautiful football and have it be pretty up there, I'm not sure if the game's going to go like that. New York does a really good job. I think they're an excellent team. I think they're one of the top teams in the league talent-wise as well. They do a pretty good job playing out of the back on that tight pitch, but a lot of times they will go forward and they look for that knockdown in the second. But they're used to it. So while they'll build and try to play through the lines, they have talent to do that. Sometimes they understand you have to go long, and they win the knockdowns and they go. But Tati Castellanos does an excellent job leading the line for them up front. Golden Boot winner, potentially MVP winner. I mean, he's been fantastic for them. So he'll be someone we definitely have to keep an eye on. But it's those second balls in the midfield. So I think this game is going to be really in the midfield. Who wins that battle and who can pick up the most second balls? Both teams can play. And both teams are going to be up for the fight, but who's going to win that midfield battle? I think then they get the ball to the attackers, and both teams have attackers that can make a difference.
It's amazing to think that Atlanta United has not played a match at Yankee Stadium in more than 2 full calendar years. There are a lot of players on this team who have never set foot in Yankee Stadium, let alone played a match there. So what are some of the things that Gonzalo has had to do over the last week and a half to try to prepare the team mentally and maybe physically as well for that challenge of playing on that pitch?
Yeah, it sounds easy to talk about it and, hey, guys, it's more of a narrow pitch. You can show video. What we did here is we actually painted the lines so the dimensions are exactly Yankee Stadium dimensions out there on our practice field. But even with that, it just doesn't feel the same as until you get up there. So you rely on the Miles, the Brad, the Joseph, these guys that have been here and say, hey, it's not going to be the same, right? And so we spoke about being able to play out of the back. Sometimes we're not always going to be able to do that. And the angles are a little bit different. The spaces are a little bit tighter. So, I think the messaging is just, it's not going to be the exact same game as we think maybe we can play. So be prepared, again, adapt. We might have to go long a few times. We might have to fight and scrap in the midfield a bit more than usual, but definitely the messaging is that mentality, it is going to be different, so let's be ready for it.
I want to get into a couple kind of big picture things with you. This is going to be a crazy offseason because it's so compressed. The season starts earlier than ever next year. Got Charlotte coming in, another kind of regional rival. Is there going to be a break for you in the offseason, or is it just straight away all the way through to kickoff of 22?
Yeah, I think my break usually comes in March when the season has started, and that usually it's around there's an international break usually around that time. No, the off seasons when kind of the front office goes to work, and that's our longer hours and longer days. We have to make some tough decisions, right? That's always part of it. But no, it'll be okay. I think this year we've got most of our guys are under contract for a long term, and that's just how it works in the cycles. So last year we had a few more guys out of contract. This year we have a lot more guys under contract. We've got our head coach going into next year, so that'll take, we don't have to do that search in the off season. So while it's busy, we have, I think, a good base and a good core of what we're looking forward to next year. We've got the salary cap. We've got still some decisions to make, but I feel good about where we're going for next year. And as far as my off season or whatever the front office off season, it'll be normally busy, but I don't think it should be too crazy.
I don't know if you've had time to reflect on the last 5, 6, 7 years, but is there a particular accomplishment where maybe you're most proud? And I'm thinking of the Academy and how now the Academy's produced a couple national teamers. We saw even Caleb Wiley this week. Obviously, the club is in the playoffs for the 4th time in 5 years, 3 trophies, all of that. Is there one kind of individual aspect of what's been accomplished here that maybe you're most proud of?
No, that's a good question, Mike. Nothing individually, to be quite honest. I think what I'm most proud of is it was a tough, last 5 months of 2020, and we had a pretty challenging 2021 at the beginning. And just again, I talk about it, but the people in the building that care about this place and the people around the club, I think it shows the foundation we were able to lay for the first kind of 3.5, 4 years. To establish ourselves that we did go through a bit of a rocky period. And that happens, right? But we were able to fight through, and the people in this building, that makes me feel good because I feel like we've gone out and hired the right people that are club people and our club staff. And that's something that's I think the organization does very well. So I think if you look at that, our academy has done fantastic. Tony did a great job, and Matt's now hopefully going to keep pushing us on. And he's doing fantastic. And then our USL team, that's evolved. We've been able to utilize that. That's an invaluable tool for us, honestly. Miles, you talk about Caleb Wiley, George Bello, Campbell, you go on down the line, guys that have played and now kicking on to the first team. And then, with the first team. And yes, while we've been able to have some success, I really think looking back in these last kind of year and a half, you're going, whew, all right, we were able to get through that during COVID as well, which that was on top of it. So, you go back and reflect, and like I said, I'm really proud of the group that we have here, and people were willing to fight through the difficult times and get us back on course in the right direction.
I know you're busy, so I don't want to take any more of your time. Carlos, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you up in the Bronx, I guess, on Sunday.
Thank you.
Great chatting with Carlos. It has been a roller coaster year, no doubt about it, but here we are now going into the MLS Cup playoffs, starting for Atlanta United Sunday in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium, but the playoffs actually get started Saturday, and this Eastern Conference bracket's very intriguing because I think you could have road wins in all 3 Eastern Conference matchups. As we look at the schedule, Red Bulls in Philadelphia start the whole thing off Saturday afternoon, and it's 2 teams with a history, 2 teams with a rivalry, and I think that's going to be a very intense match.
Yeah, 2 teams with similar styles as well, 2 teams that are disruptive. So which team is going to be able to find some semblance of control in that game? I think it's Philadelphia. I think they have a little bit more talent in the team, but the Red Bulls are so good at doing what they do. If they're able to stick with that, Philadelphia has to show that they can win a big postseason match, because last season they weren't able to do that. And we talked about that last year a little bit. Can they do it this time? They're at home. They should. But the Red Bulls have been one of the better teams down the stretch, and they just make life difficult for you. That game will not be pretty. do not look for the highlights of that one to have nutmegs and dribbles and sombreros and any of that. No, it's going to be a lot of fouls, a lot of players on the ground, and a lot of pressing from both teams.
And then Orlando and Nashville on Tuesday. And that one's intriguing, too, because I think it's a little bit more of a clash of styles. I could see Nashville trying to be very defensive in that match at home. Orlando's probably going to want to try to play.
Yeah, Orlando's a hard team to read because they've had a lot of ups and downs this year. Every time we think that Orlando has turned that corner and they are a contender, and I think talent-wise they can be a contender, then they've dropped off. And they were dropping off going into Decision Day, and they faced a must-win game in Montreal, and they showed their quality. So can they ride that momentum into Nashville, a team that has been very, very steady, very, very difficult to beat? Now, a team that in the regular season has had a number of draws this year, though. Do they want to deal with extra time? Can Nashville put a team away? That's my question. I think they can. I think they're the more complete team in this one. And we talked about Philadelphia with the playoffs last year. You do have to look back at Orlando in the postseason last year, and they struggled, I think, emotionally to handle those swings. They're not going to be able to get away with those kind of breakdowns like they did last year, where they did win a playoff game. Nashville will punish them for that.
Western Conference, meanwhile, very interesting because I'm not sure the number one seed in the West is necessarily the favorite to go to the MLS Cup final, and that's Colorado. But the top three seeds, Colorado, Seattle, and Kansas City, all separated by very little. And Sporting Kansas City's got a tricky match against a hot Vancouver team on Saturday.
Vancouver's got nothing to lose. Vancouver, with an interim manager, have really come together, and they have a dangerous attack. Ryan Gauld, one of the best additions in midseason this year. White up top, one of the more underrated forwards in the league. They can go into Kansas City and win that game. And think back to last year in the postseason where Kansas City had difficulty with San Jose and it went to a shootout. So Vancouver's the upset special for me out west just because of the form that they've been in. They've been, along with Atlanta, along with New England, along with Portland, one of the best teams in the league in the second half. Vancouver can go win that game because Kansas City has been another one of those good teams that has had moments where you question, are they good enough to win MLS Cup at the end of the season? I'm not convinced as of yet. I think Vancouver is a team to watch.
Portland, Minnesota, RSL, Seattle. Those are the other matches in the Western Conference this weekend. But I really think the home teams are going to be stressed this weekend in the MLS Cup playoffs. It speaks to the parity in the league. I think there's way more parity than some people give it credit for. And Atlanta United is going to be one of those road teams that I think has a chance to get a road victory on Sunday when they go to Yankee Stadium. And I like what Carlos said, that there's really a respect for New York City in this building here at the training ground. These teams do play very high-quality, entertaining matches against each other. But what is it going to take for Atlanta United to survive playing in those tight spaces and still being able to assert themselves and do what they want to do on Sunday?
I think at times playing with a confidence and even at times playing with an arrogance that they can do it, that the size of the pitch doesn't matter. They are going to have to pick their spots, and I think that's something that we've seen under Gonzalo Pineda, and especially in these last couple of games, the trip to Toronto, the game in Cincinnati, the game at Red Bulls, and that's the one I keep coming back to. New York City doesn't play like the Red Bulls, but you're going to have to, because of the conditions of the pitch, because of the size of the pitch, at times you're going to have to abandon playing out of the back. You have to make that decision properly because one mistake in the postseason and it can end the season. So they're going to have to be willing to take a step away from building out of the back and know when to do that. They've had some practice at doing it here lately. And New York City up front is where I'm afraid of them. Castellanos, and he's good at pressing. He's good at causing turnovers. Maxi Morales, one of the most crafty players in the league. Who's going to be around them is a little bit of a question. We saw Tyler Magno come in to the match here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in October and really turn the game on its head. Thiago's had moments. Rodriguez has had moments. But Morales and Castellanos as a duo are good enough to ruin your day, especially if you try to play out of the back at a time where maybe you shouldn't.
It's interesting, though, because when these teams played in October at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it wasn't necessarily Castellanos and Morales who ruined Atlanta United's day. It was a set piece at the very end that made it a draw, but Atlanta United, their defending in that match was really pitch perfect most of the way.
It was really strong, and they controlled the match. The difference in that game, and it is something that we've talked about a lot down the stretch with Atlanta United, where they've controlled games, at times they haven't put games away early enough, and opportunities have been there to do so. That's critical in this one. The momentum swings, the emotional swings in the postseason are different than the regular season. If Atlanta United gets 2 goals in the first half, I think it's game over. I think it's ball game. And when you look historically, Atlanta United with 2 goals, it's pretty much game over. Road, home, anywhere. If you can put that second goal on the board, Atlanta United wins the game. And you've got to do that. And that was what was lacking in that game in October, where there were opportunities to do it, really not too concerned about New York City finding their way back into the game. Magno came on and was a problem. Gideon Zalalem, who's suspended for this game, came on and played really well in that one. But they didn't look threatening until they got a set piece. You can't give them those set pieces. They're going to be more difficult at home. But Atlanta United, if they get the opportunity to bury the game, got to bury it.
Yeah, and Jason mentioned Zalalem out on a suspension. Keaton Parks out for the rest of the year due to a blood clot issue. And there's some questions about Alexander Callens, who had to leave the Peruvian national team because he's dealing with a muscular issue. So New York City could be a little bit shorthanded. We're hoping Atlanta United is going to be in pretty good health coming into this match on Sunday. How do you think a guy like George Bello might factor into Atlanta United, what they need to do to be effective on Sunday?
Well, I think we have to get into a little bit of what New York City's dealing with. And we don't know exactly what their injury situation is going to be coming into this game. But we know that Parks is out. We know that Zalalem is out. We know that Anton Tinnerholm has been out for a while. So that's 3 starters in their back 6. They're going to be makeshift to some degree. Now, Alexander Callens becomes critical in this because they don't really have depth at center back. James Sands would probably slot into the center back role if Callens can't go. James Sands, since the game here in October against NYC, has been playing right back and kind of playing as a little bit of an old school right back where he's not really going forward very much. He's staying at home. But he could be needed in the central midfield as well. You need 3 James Sands in this game, basically, if you're Ronnie Dyla, because with no Zalalem, with no Parks, with no Acevedo possibly for them, they're going to be down numbers there too. So James Sands is the Mr. Fix-It here, but he can't be in every position that they need him. Let's assume he's at right back, because that's where he's played the most as of late. What that presents for George Bello is really interesting, in my opinion, because Sands will stay home for the most part. And we talked about this with Gonzalo Pineda this season. What he likes to be able to do at times is to pin the outside backs back, not let the opponent's outside backs come and join the attack. Sands will naturally do that anyway. That invites George Bello to go forward. It invites whoever's on that left side, whether it's Ezequiel Barco, Marcelino Moreno, sometimes one, sometimes the other, to really stay with Sands. You can create 2v1s against Sands quite a bit. Then you start the domino effect. Okay, it's a 2v1 against Sands. Whoever the right center back is for New York City is going to have to come over and help there. That creates space for Joseph. That creates space for Araujo coming in from the backside. That could be huge for Atlanta United. That's if Sands is at right back. Mm-hmm. If he's at center back and it's Tavon Gray at right back, you're talking about a player with 1 MLS start. I think a pretty good one against Atlanta United at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but an inexperienced player in the postseason. If Sands is in the midfield, then you've got Gray at right back, and then you've got probably an outside back playing center back if Callens can't go, and that's another opportunity to attack. But that right side, without Anton Tinnerholm, is not what it's been for New York City. That invites George Bello to get forward and really take some chances going forward. And Bello has been very impactful as the year has gone on. He could be that key to this match for Atlanta United, in my opinion.
And George is one of those Atlanta United players who's never played at Yankee Stadium. It's amazing to think about because the last time Atlanta United was there, it was 2019. It was September of 2019, so it's been more than 2 calendar years. But I have a feeling a lot of the Atlanta United players who have not played at Yankee Stadium before could play a big role in this match, which leads us to our predictions. And I thought you were onto something. First team to 2 goals wins, but I'm not going to take that.
I'm not going to take that either. That's just a bonus out there.
All right. Here's my theory.
Okay.
So, look, Yankee Stadium is a compact pitch. What do they list the dimensions at?
70 yards.
Okay. I haven't paced it off. I'm going to assume it's a little more narrow than that. I think Atlanta United is going to score a goal off a direct free kick in this match.
Okay.
And they've done it quite a bit this year. The reason why I say that is pretty much any foul in the New York City end is going to produce a chance at goal. So, I mean, if you're fouled at the halfway line, go to goal, as far as I'm concerned at Yankee Stadium. That's a slight exaggeration, but I do think Atlanta United is going to get a goal off a direct free kick because I think they're going to have the opportunities. Atlanta United has suffered the most fouls in the league this year. New York City among the most fouling teams in the league this year as far as fouls committed.
Yeah, I think to play off of where I was going with Bello, he's going to create a tension on that left side. And I think who that really benefits is Luis Araujo. I think Araujo is going to maybe get forgotten about a little bit on that right side. He's going to be able to crash. I think Luis Araujo is the player who scores the goal that sends Atlanta United to the next round.
Oh, boy, that would be something. Eric Remetti was the one who did it in 2018 at Yankee Stadium. We'd love to etch Luis Araujo's name into stone.
I do think Luis might have a better celebration and better dance moves than Eric had. Eric was pretty good, but Luis has got some moves. I think Luis will upgrade that a little bit.
You just gave me a thought for a feature on next week's AT&T Countdown to Kickoff as we rate goal celebrations all time in Atlanta United history. We're going to have to work on this as soon as we're done today. I think that could be a lot of fun. Okay, the match is at 3 o'clock Sunday at Yankee Stadium. You can watch it on ABC, and you can listen to it on the radio on Sports Radio 92.9, the game in Atlanta, and also on the Atlanta United app. Don't forget about that. Jason and I will be with you next week for another edition of the AT&T Countdown to Kickoff as we go through the 2021 MLS Cup playoffs. We hope you enjoy Sunday's match.